Welcome to Viamathesis. I'm Stephen Anthony Orzel. We'll be continuing our series in the ancient philosophy of mathematics. In this third video, we'll be looking at the Pythagorean definition of the Quadrivium. How it comes about that in the Quadrivium there's only 4 subjects. To understand this, we're going to look at the text of Nicomachus of Gerasa. Let me say a bit about Nicomachus. He lived in the 1st through the 2nd century CE, Common Era. It means the same thing as AD. Nicomachus wrote a text known as the Introduction to Arithmetic. And in the Introduction to Arithmetic, he begins by looking at the definition of the Quadrivium and also why arithmetic was the first to be studied in the Quadrivium. So, if you want to get Introduction to Arithmetic, you can read it. It is available in English translation, although it's out of print. So if you do want it, you're going to have to go to the library and find it. So, this is what Nicomachus says in the 2nd and 3rd chapters. Things then, both those properly so called, and those that simply have the name, are some of them unified and continuous. For example, an animal, the universe, a tree, and the like, which are properly and peculiarly called magnitudes. Others are discontinuous, in a side-by-side arrangement, and, as it were, in heaps, which are called multitudes. A flock, for instance, a people, a heap, a chorus, and the like. So this is the first breakdown in the Quadrivium. That we can either have multitude or magnitude. And multitude is what we would think of as integers. If I was going to say these are a multitude of markers, 4 markers. But what's meant by magnitude is something like, well, I can take this one marker and measure it, and it's about maybe 5 inches. Or 5.624 inches. Something like a real number, we would think of it. So it's the discrete and the continuous. The integers and the real numbers. Now, these are each broken down. Each one of these will be broken down into 2, like this. And then we're going to get 4, and that's the Quadrivium. So this is what Nicomachus says about that. Wisdom, then, must be considered to be knowledge of these 2 forms. Since, however, all multitude and magnitude are by their own nature of necessity infinite, for multitude starts from a definite root and never ceases increasing, and magnitude, when division beginning with a limited whole is carried on, cannot bring the dividing process to an end, but proceeds therefore to infinity. And since sciences are always sciences of limited things and never of infinities, it is accordingly evident that a science dealing either with magnitude per se or with multitude per se could never be formulated, for each of them is limitless in itself. Multitude in the direction of the more, and magnitude in the direction of the less. A science, however, would arise to deal with something separated from each of them, with quantity set off from multitude, and size from magnitude. Again, to start afresh, since of quantity one kind is viewed by itself, having no relation to anything else, as even, odd, perfect, and the like, and the other is relative to something else, and is conceived together with its relationship to another thing, like double, greater, smaller, etc., it is clear that two scientific methods will lay hold of and deal with the whole investigation of quantity: arithmetic with absolute quantity, and music with relative quantity. Let me get these two up here. I'm going to put harmonics instead of music. So, again, arithmetic was absolute quantities, talking about is a number in and of itself even or odd or perfect. Harmonics looks at things like ratios, like the ratio of 2 to 3 is the perfect fifth. 3 to 4 is the perfect fourth, and so on. So we need two numbers to talk about ratios. So it's not absolute number, but number in relationship to another number. So we think of that as harmonics, or music. Continuing on, and once more, inasmuch as part of size is in a state of rest and stability, and another part in motion and revolution, two other sciences in the same way will accurately treat of size: geometry, the part that abides and is at rest; astronomy, that which moves and revolves. So now let's put these up here. Now also, we have Proclus, who obviously read Nicomachus, and actually in the life of Proclus by Marinus, Proclus actually had a dream once where he was shown that he was actually the reincarnation of Nicomachus. So that's a little interesting side bit there. But this is what Proclus writes in his commentary in the first book of Euclid's Elements. He basically recapitulates what Nicomachus says. The Pythagoreans considered all mathematical science to be divided into four parts. One half they marked off as concerned with quantity, the other half with magnitude. And each of these they posited as twofold. A quantity can be considered in regard to its character by itself, or in its relation to another quantity. Magnitudes as either stationary or in motion. Arithmetic then studies quantity as such, music the relations between quantities. Geometry studies magnitude at rest. Spherics studies magnitude inherently moving. The Pythagoreans consider quantity and magnitude not in their generality, however, but only as finite in each case, for they say that the sciences study the finite in abstraction from the infinite quantities and magnitudes, since it is impossible to comprehend infinity in either of them. Since this assertion is made by men who have reached the summit of wisdom, it is not for us to demand that we be taught about quantity in sense objects or magnitude that appears in bodies. To examine these matters is, I think, the province of the science of nature, and not that of mathematics itself. So in the next video, we're going to be looking at arithmetic. It is the beginning study in the Quadrivium, and I'm going to be describing the number symbolism of the monad through the decad, which is shown here as the tetractys, and show you how you can begin to meditate with numbers. And I'm going to give the specific meditations you can do, how you can begin to start internalizing these systems of thought. So that's coming up next. We'll look at specifically why Nicomachus puts introduction at the beginning. So he goes through a dialectic to say that which of these four should be studied first, and the dialectic shows that it's arithmetic that's going to go first. So that's what's coming up next, and I hope you'll join us for that.